I want to continue our discussion about the Sports Illustrated Sportsperson of the Year, but I think something that's important, is a little context provided. And by context, I mean, and people that are my age, if you're in your 40s or later, you're going to nod your head a bunch. If you're under 40, you're going to be a little bit lost until I explain this to you. Okay? And Bayer and Jay Stu and Ryan, you guys can keep me honest if I'm off at any of this stuff. Okay? Sports Illustrated was the sports magazine. There was Sport Magazine. There were others as well, right? You know, back when you used to have I think they still have the Athlons. They used to have the Street and Smith previews, which, you remember flying. If you're flying around the country in the summer, you get to like late July, early August. Everyone I knew would pick up the Athlons magazine or the Street and Smith to preview college football. And then a little bit later on in the fall to preview college basketball. Like that was kind of cool. But Sports Illustrated was the weekly periodical. It was you'd go to I can remember, I have Sports Illustrated. I have almost every Michael Jordan cover there ever was, and he has been on the cover more than anybody else. And it used to be, you do something great, you're on the cover of Sports Illustrated. Matter of fact, of the regrets that I have from my playing career, losing in the Elite Eight, and Grant Wall was a great writer, of course, tragically passed away at the World Cup, right, going back to last year. Grant Wall hung out with me and my family for 2 days, and I was told it'd potentially be a cover story if we went to the Final Four. And instead we lost in the Elite Eight. Then now no cover story. There's no story in Sports Illustrated ever. Right? So what you have to understand when people probably overreact to Deion Sanders being named the Sports Illustrated Sportsperson of the Year, it's because when we grew up, when I was a kid, there was no greater honor in sports than being on the cover of Sports Illustrated. And if you won Sportsperson of the Year, you pretty much were the name. You dominated that year in athletics in your chosen field. You were the story. Meyer, am I okay? Am I painting the proper picture? It was Wednesdays that showed up at my house. I don't know about your house.
I actually didn't get it when I was younger. Yeah, I did not. But yes, it was the benchmark. It was the big kahuna, if you will.
Right. So and look, going hand in hand with that, as sports evolved, right? You go from Sports Illustrated was the thing for the week, and then Sports Center was, if you were on Sports Center, you were on everything. And what's changed in our coverage of sports is obviously now it's 24/7. And those morning shows, which it wasn't until First Take, and First Take, of course, started as First and 10. It was all part of Cold Pizza, right, which was a sports morning show in New York. And they just kind of found this lightning in a bottle, and it became Hot Take Central and debate shows early. And, again, all of the debating all came from PTI. Right, so you had, in kind of sequential order, Sports Illustrated was king, then sports radio started, then you had, daily sports shows on TV, and all of a sudden it started to minimize what you could do in print because these articles came out right after the game, and then you add in, social media and stories. Once you get to a story on a Wednesday about a game on a Saturday, and really the last time people quoted or picked up Sports Illustrated is when Lee Jenkins was writing for it, right? And remember, Lee Jenkins now works for the Clippers and writes stories for their website, so he's kind of disappeared. And the storytelling, went away. And what's weird is, when was the last time you thought about, even quoted a Sports Illustrated story? Honestly, it was probably earlier this week when turns out they were using some AI-generated stories. So part of it is our own, the older sports fan generation has to come around to hey, Sports Illustrated hasn't really been relevant in a long time. It's been bought and sold 2 or 3 times over. It's no longer a magazine. They started doing regional stuff. But yet we still hold, it's a little bit like the Heisman Trophy, right? Where we still, those of us who are old enough kind of revere the Heisman Trophy, but do you watch the ceremony anymore? Do you really? Or maybe it's more like whoever leads the league in batting average. We don't really pay attention to that anymore.
Let me ask you this.
Yes.
Do you remember your first delivered Sports Illustrated? And I asked this because up until I got my first subscription, I would like randomly have my mom buy it at the store. But for Christmas one year, my parents got me a subscription. I don't know why it didn't kick in until the summer, but I remember the first issue that I ever got sent to my house. You know, it was a big deal. Jordan was on the cover, and I don't know if you remember this one. He was going up for a dunk or a layup, and he had somebody's hand across his forehead, and like he was like being fouled as he's going up for a layup, and it was in the practicing for the '84 Olympic team, the Bobby Knight '84 Olympic team. Michael Jordan on the cover getting fouled going up for a layup. That's my first cover.
Was it an Olympic team one?
Yes, 84. Yep.
Yeah, I think I have that one. I don't know if that was my first, but it was close to. My dad had like the first ever Sports Illustrated. Like there's just box upon box in my mom's garage, but they all have his name on them, so I don't know if they have any sort of value or whatever. They've been around forever. I just I was always a Jordan guy. And when Jordan started populating the covers, I just started keeping them and hold on to them. Dr. Z would do the NFL previews, right? He would always do the NFL picks and NFL previews. And I remember all the Jordan ones. So I use that as context for when Deion Sanders is named the Sports Person of the Year. People are like, dude, 4-8. What are we doing here? And I get it. I understand it. But you're looking. Have there been people who have been more successful? Of course. But I would also tell you that, and I don't know if you have to be Sports Person of the Year. And Dan Beyer brought up a great point. It's like they gave it to J.J. Watt after the I think it was a hurricane, right, that flooded Houston and all the great deeds that he did, and he along with Jose Altuve won it one year. And so when they want it to be about sportsmanship and doing the right things, they can. In this case, it's just simply about turning around a program. I agree with that. We all kind of do that in life, right? Like if the Bible works for us, we say it's in the Bible. If it doesn't work for us, we don't quote it. Same thing with the Constitution. We do that all the time. But in this particular case, I think if we're real about it, and I try to be, I love college football. So if you love college football, you're going to have a hard time hearing this. College football has not been in a great place in terms of national popularity. Just hasn't. It's become like NASCAR. Whether it's real or not, people thought it was Clemson and Georgia and Alabama every year, and kind of was. And then, Michigan kind of around, and Notre Dame kind of around, and Ohio State, but nothing in the western United States. Texas hasn't been involved in that thing in years. This is the first time they're close. And he made it interesting. Deion made it popular. And the West Coast has seen a resurgence this year. And I don't think that most of it is because of Deion. It's just because Washington and Oregon are that good. The rest of the league's that good. And everybody caught up to Caleb Williams. And he had a rough year, showing just how good that league is. I think that's more what it's about. But it got us into it. It got us paying attention to the league. It got us paying attention to college football. It got us paying attention to Colorado football when we didn't previously. And the lesson is, and I thought, Dan Beyer, you nailed this early on. You're like, at the end of the day, if things are equal, it is they're trying to sell magazines. But life is like that. Life's a popularity contest. I wish it wasn't. I wish life was completely a meritocracy and only the people who achieved great things were able to be successful. That sounds great. That's not how it actually works. And whether I love Deion's approach at all times or you love Deion's approach or whatever, a lot of people do. And there's a portion of sports fans who, whether they felt disconnected, disenfranchised, whether they just didn't care, everyone I know was watching that Colorado State game. Can you think of anything? I mean, outside, obviously, of the Super Bowl. And I would have no problem with giving it to Andy Reid or Pat Mahomes. Novak Djokovic you could give it to, who, of course, now has become the winningest all-time singles player, and continued to defy age. There's a bunch of different ways you can go. But let's not undersell just how big a thing the Deion thing was, albeit for about a month and a half, 2 months. Go ahead, Dan. I'm sorry. I know you have.
Well,
I
I actually think the other name that you mentioned there, not only is Novak Djokovic the guy who now has the most career singles titles of any, surpassing Rafael Nadal, he also won 3 of the 4 Grand Slam events and lost in the Wimbledon finals in 5 sets to Carlos Alcaraz. So you're a set away, losing 6-4, by the way. So he was a break away from maybe winning the single season Grand Slam, which, by the way, has not been done by any player, male or female, since Steffi Graf did it in 1988. So you want to talk about taking longevity and then taking, what you've done recently? Like Djokovic was going to be my second pick, if we got to that part of our draft, because of that and because of the great accomplishments. But then you also have a guy who was the face of anti-vax and not taking part in tournaments. And you wonder if Sports Illustrated is like, even though we're past that, does that sell magazines? Do you put Djokovic on the cover? And because his accomplishments were, staggering, short-term and long-term, but did he not win out because he was the anti-vax face for a while in sports, and not only in this country, but throughout the world?
It's a great question. Jay Stu?
It's interesting you bring up Djokovic, because that also brings up maybe the catchphrase of the year that I coined, and he obviously didn't escape from Alcaraz in the one major. Yeah, he didn't escape from Alcaraz.
He did not escape from Alcaraz. This is true.
The one that I was going to mention, at the risk of being a racist, Caitlyn Clark. She literally made me, for the first time in my lifetime, find college women's basketball. I typically would just happen upon it or watch highlights, but she was must-see TV in that tournament last year, or at the end of the regular season.
It's a good one.
Her pulling up for fast break, what was it, logo threes? Is that what they call them nowadays?
The problem would be?
Yeah, I would get a lot of backlash from the other side.
Right. What do you think it would be?
Why would you single out Caitlyn Clark when so-and-so from LSU was blah, blah, blah?
The game.
Yeah.
Right? What would it make you?
I guess it'd be make me a racist.
No, it doesn't make you a racist. Stop.
I didn't say it makes him a racist.
Me and the president's wife.
Right. We're not talking with what it actually does. It's that there would be a percentage of people that if I went and said, because his point was the same point that I made about Deion Sanders. I never cared about Colorado football since they had, frankly, Eric Bieniemy was there and Darian Hagan and all those guys. That was the last time I cared about Colorado football. I found myself watching every game. I was super, super into it. And I know a bunch of people that were into it. And it brought attention, and he's right. I watched college basketball this year because of Caitlyn Clark. And I want to see, they upset South Carolina, right? They beat South Carolina, and then they played LSU and got beaten pretty handily in the finals. But she brought me to a TV. But I'm not saying he is. I know he's not. I'm saying that if you said, hey, Caitlyn Clark was the reason that I watched the women's national championship game, and it's true. People did watch because of her. You're that's racist because you didn't watch for Angel Reese. No, that wasn't really how it was.
Well, I can say as a black man, I watched that game mainly for Caitlyn Clark. So I guess that makes me racist. So there you go.
Thank you, Ross.
And I would just say that it would be the same reason that Deion got the award.
Right, same thing.
We cared about it in March, but it's not that she wasn't making highlights in December and January, because she was, and you would see that. But the real buzz came over what went on during the women's NCAA tournament. Very
Agreed.
short time period, time span. Now it's carried over to this year where, we're still paying attention, or to the season, I should say. But I think that there's
I thought
others.
Messi's a really good pick. I kind of think you sort of crushed all of our spirits with Messi because, the Miami thing was a thing. Plus you have the World Cup. Plus he's Messi.
Yeah.
He even had the videos of him shopping in the grocery store like he's a regular dude until people found out who he was.
He
the whole
lost,
thing.
winning the World Cup for that country and for what it has been for him. And it's basically a technicality, again, because it was December 18th when they won, so he couldn't win it in 2022 because they hadn't won it yet when they gave Steph Curry the award.
Sure.
But we don't take into account. And then for what it changed over here, TV numbers, subscription numbers, MLS matches. And, Doug, I think the country agrees with you because I tweeted it. And so far it's got no likes and no retweets. So,
nice.
Yeah, that's where we are. It's a little joke. The numbers aren't a joke. It was just making fun of the impact that my tweet had on social media. But I do think I think Messi is the one. And again, Djokovic, if he would have won the Grand Slam and then not won this, and then I think there would be even a bigger deal. But you can't get any closer than he did.